Welcome to my channel. Try to hear the latest story.
My cheating ex-wife filed an emergency motion to triple my child support, saying I owe them a comfortable life, now that her new husband wants to be a stay-at-home dad. What I did next made them regret it. All right, Reddit, buckle up because this story is wild. My ex-wife tried to drain my bank account so her new husband could quit his job and play house dad, but she forgot one important detail. I keep receipts. And when I say receipts, I mean everything. I'm 34, been divorced for 3 years now. Got 2 kids, Nathan is 8 and Lily is 6. They're the only good thing that came out of my marriage to my ex-wife, Jenny. I work as a plant operations manager at a chemical manufacturing facility in Arizona. Not the most glamorous job, but it pays well. The benefits are solid, and I've been there for 9 years now. Worked my way up from quality control technician to my current position. Own a 3-bedroom house in a decent neighborhood, drive a 2019 Ford Ranger that's almost paid off, and I've actually got money in my savings account for the first time since the divorce. The plant where I work produces industrial chemicals for manufacturing processes. Nothing exciting, but it's steady work. We run 24/7 operations with 3 shifts, about 80 employees total. My job involves coordinating production schedules, managing equipment maintenance, dealing with safety compliance, and basically making sure everything runs smoothly. Started there right out of college with a degree in industrial engineering. Entry-level position testing product samples, working my way through quality control, then production supervision, now operations management. The company's been around since the 1970s, family-owned until about 5 years ago when they sold to a larger corporation. Benefits stayed solid though. Good insurance, 401k matching, 3 weeks paid vacation. My house is nothing fancy. Built in 1998, standard Arizona stucco, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, decent-sized backyard with a covered patio. Got it during the divorce because the market was decent, and I needed somewhere stable for the kids. Fixed-rate mortgage at 3.5%. Payments manageable even with child support. Spent the first few months after moving in setting up the kids' rooms exactly how they wanted. Nathan picked out dinosaur bedding and posters of planets. Lily wanted everything pink and purple with butterfly decorations everywhere. Made sure they each had their own space, their own stuff, felt like it was actually their home, and not just Dad's house where they visited. The Ranger was a practical choice. Needed something reliable for getting to work and hauling stuff for the house. Got it certified pre-owned with 32,000 miles, V6 engine, extended cab so the kids fit comfortably in back. Not flashy, but it does everything I need. Oil changes every 5,000 miles, regular maintenance, should last me another decade easy. The divorce itself was pretty standard. Jenny decided she wasn't happy anymore. Said she needed to find herself, wanted to explore her options. Translation: she'd been seeing someone else for about 6 months and wanted to make it official. His name's Brandon, works in pharmaceutical sales, drives a leased BMW, wears designer jeans that cost more than my monthly truck payment. Real winner. Found out about Brandon through Jenny's phone, which he'd left unlocked on the kitchen counter one Saturday morning. Wasn't snooping, was just grabbing it to hand to her when a message preview lit up. Some guy saying he couldn't wait to see her again, mentioning dinner plans. Confronted her that afternoon. She cried, said it wasn't serious, then 2 days later said she wanted a divorce because she couldn't deny her feelings anymore. Whole thing lasted 3 weeks from discovery to her moving out. Brandon was 31 at the time, worked for a mid-sized pharmaceutical company doing sales to doctors' offices and hospitals. Made good commission apparently, always bragging about his numbers. Drove a BMW 5 Series that he leased for like $850 a month. Wore suits that cost more than I spent on clothes in a year. Had this whole image going. Expensive watch, designer sunglasses, hair product that probably cost $40 a bottle. Everything about him screamed trying too hard. Met him officially about 2 months after Jenny moved out. He was picking her up for some event and I was dropping the kids off. Shook his hand, made small talk. Guy had one of those grips where he squeezes extra hard to prove something. Asked me about my truck, said he'd considered getting one but decided the BMW was more his style. Cool story, buddy. I didn't fight the divorce. What's the point? If someone wants out, let them go. We agreed on joint custody, alternating weeks with the kids. I pay child support, about $1,200 a month, which honestly seems fair given my income and expenses. Kids stay on my health insurance because my company plan is way better than whatever Brandon had. Jenny got to keep the condo we'd been renting because I didn't want the kids changing schools. I moved into a house about 15 minutes away, made sure I had bedrooms set up for Nathan and Lily, kept everything stable. The custody agreement was actually pretty straightforward. Week on, week off schedule. Exchanges happened Sunday evenings at 6 p.m. Holidays split evenly. I got Thanksgiving and she got Christmas in even years, reversed in odd years. Summer break divided into 2-week blocks. Both of us had decision-making authority for medical and educational stuff, had to communicate about major decisions. I agreed to keep paying for their health insurance, dental, vision. Jenny agreed to handle school registration and paperwork since she lived closer to their school. Support calculation was based on state guidelines, factoring in both our incomes, custody time, who paid for insurance. Came out to $1,200 monthly, paid on the first of each month via direct deposit. The kids adjusted pretty well. Nathan had some rough nights at first, asking why Daddy wasn't coming home, but we worked through it. Made sure they knew they were loved, that the divorce wasn't their fault, all that stuff you're supposed to say. Lily was younger, rolled with it better. Kids are resilient like that. Jenny married Brandon about 8 months after our divorce was finalized. Quick, right? They'd been living together the whole time anyway, so marriage just made it official. Brandon seemed okay with the kids initially. Bought Nathan some gaming stuff, took Lily to the park, played the stepdad role well enough. I didn't love it, but I wasn't going to be that bitter ex-husband who makes everything difficult. As long as my kids were safe and happy, Brandon could exist. Here's where things get interesting. About 6 months ago, Jenny started making comments during custody exchanges. Little digs about how my house was smaller than their new place, how Brandon's car was nicer than my truck, how they were planning this big vacation to Hawaii, and wouldn't it be nice if I contributed more so the kids could have better experiences? I ignored it. Jenny always had a thing about appearances, about keeping up with some imaginary standard nobody actually cared about. It was one of the reasons our marriage fell apart. She wanted the Instagram life, and I was focused on building actual stability. Then 2 months ago, Nathan mentioned something weird during dinner. We were eating tacos, which is basically our Wednesday tradition now. Kid was telling me about his day, mentioned that Brandon had been home a lot lately, like during work hours, helping with homework, making lunch, hanging around the house. Nathan thought it was cool because Brandon would play Xbox with him in the afternoons. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe Brandon's job was remote now, or he had flexible hours. Sales jobs can be weird like that. But then Lily mentioned that Brandon was there when she got home from school too, and that he'd been there every day for weeks. Something felt off. Started paying more attention during custody exchanges. Brandon's BMW was always in the driveway when I dropped the kids off on Sunday evenings. Still there when I drive by the house on my way to work Monday mornings around 7 a.m. Sales guys are usually out early, making calls, visiting clients. This guy was home. Also noticed his appearance had changed. Used to be dressed sharp all the time, suit and tie, polished shoes. Now he'd answer the door in gym clothes or casual stuff. Hair wasn't as styled. Still wearing the expensive watch, but the whole put-together image had slipped. The following week, I had the kids. Nathan was playing on his tablet and accidentally opened Brandon's email on the home Wi-Fi. Don't ask me how. Kids just click stuff. But what popped up made me pause. Job rejection letters. Multiple companies, all dated within the last month. Brandon was applying for jobs, which meant he probably didn't have one anymore. Actually saw 3 rejection emails right there on the screen before Nathan clicked away. One from a medical device company, one from a different pharmaceutical firm, one from some healthcare software startup, all basically saying thanks but no thanks, we've moved forward with other candidates. The dates ranged from 3 weeks ago to 5 days ago. I didn't say anything to Nathan about it, just noted it mentally. Started watching more closely after that. The BMW wasn't moving much. Same spot in the driveway day after day. When I dropped the kids off, Brandon would be inside watching TV or on his phone. Once saw him through the window playing video games in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon. Another time, he was napping on the couch at 2 p.m. on a Thursday. Jenny seemed more stressed during exchanges. Usually she was cheerful, asking about the kids' week, making small talk. Now she barely looked at me, just hurried the kids inside. Her car wasn't as clean as usual. Jenny was always particular about keeping her vehicle spotless. Now there were fast food bags in the back seat, kid stuff scattered around. Small detail, but noticeable. About 3 weeks after Nathan accidentally opened Brandon's email, Lily mentioned they'd been eating a lot of chicken nuggets and frozen pizza. Not complaining, she actually likes that stuff. But Jenny was the type who usually cooked proper meals, always going on about nutrition and organic vegetables. The shift to convenience food suggested either she was busier than usual or money was tighter. Also noticed Jenny had stopped posting on social media. She used to be all over Instagram. Photos of date nights with Brandon, pictures of their house, shots of the kids doing activities. Suddenly nothing for weeks. Her last post was from like 6 weeks back. Some scenic photo with a generic caption. Woman who normally posted 3 times a week going radio silent? Something was definitely up. 3 weeks ago, Jenny texted asking if we could talk. Said it was important. About the kids' future. We met at a coffee shop near her place. Said it was important. About the kids' future. Standard chain place, nothing fancy. Got there 5 minutes early, ordered a black coffee, sat at a table in the corner. She showed up 10 minutes late, which was unusual. Jenny's normally punctual. She looked stressed, hair wasn't done like usual, wearing sweats instead of her normal put-together outfits. No makeup, which I'd almost never seen. She ordered some complicated latte, took forever, then sat down across from me. Made small talk first. How were the kids doing at school? Nathan's basketball starting soon, Lily's art project. Standard co-parenting conversation stuff. Could tell she was working up to something. Then she launched into this whole speech about how things had changed, how life was different now, how we needed to rethink our arrangement. Brandon had decided to become a stay-at-home dad, she said. He was going to focus on being there for the kids, supporting their development, providing stability. It was better for everyone. I sipped my coffee and waited for the punchline. She explained that with Brandon not working, they were relying on her income alone. She's a dental hygienist, makes decent money but nothing crazy. According to her, they were struggling. The house payment, the car leases, the lifestyle they'd built. It was all stretched thin now. And since I made more money than she did, it was only fair that I contribute more to the kids' expenses. Fair. That's the word she used. Asked her what made Brandon decide to stay home. She said he'd been thinking about it for a while, that his job was stressful and unfulfilling, that he wanted to be more present for Nathan and Lily. Said the kids really loved having him around, that he was building a strong relationship with them, that his contribution as a caregiver was valuable even if it wasn't financial. I asked how much more she was thinking. She slid a paper across the table. A proposed modification to our child support agreement. She wanted $3,600 a month, triple what I was currently paying. The document was already drafted, probably by some lawyer friend who thought they were being helpful. I read through it slowly. The justification was that my income had increased since the divorce, which was true. I'd gotten promoted and received raises. The kids deserved to benefit from my success, she argued. And with Brandon transitioning to stay-at-home parent duties, the household needed additional support to maintain the children's quality of life. The document went into detail about their household expenses. Mortgage payment of $2,400 monthly. Car payments totaling $1,100. Insurance, utilities, groceries, kids' activities, clothing. Made it sound like they were barely scraping by. Then there was a section about how the kids would benefit from the increased support. Better enrichment activities, higher quality food, more educational resources, family vacations that included me contributing financially, even though I wouldn't be there. That part was rich. Here's the kicker. At the bottom of the document, there was a line about how I owed them a comfortable life, because I was the higher earner, and it was my responsibility to ensure the children didn't suffer due to Brandon's career change. Owed them. Not the kids, them. I put the paper down and looked at Jenny. She actually believed this was reasonable, that I should triple my child support payments so her new husband could quit his job and play video games with my son during work hours. I told her I'd think about it. She got annoyed, said she'd hoped I would be mature about this, that I would put the kids first. Implied that if I didn't agree, she'd have to take legal action. An emergency motion, she called it. Her lawyer said judges were usually sympathetic to situations where one parent was struggling financially. I finished my coffee and left. That night, I couldn't sleep. This woman cheated on me, divorced me, married her affair partner, and now wanted me to fund her new husband's unemployment so he could hang out at home all day. The entitlement was staggering, but I'm not stupid. I've learned over the years that emotional reactions don't solve problems. Logic does. Planning does. So instead of getting angry, I got strategic. First thing I did was call my lawyer. Not the guy who handled the divorce. He was fine, but this needed someone more aggressive. Found a family law attorney named Patricia who had a reputation for not taking garbage from anyone. Cost more per hour but worth every penny. Called her office Monday morning, explained the situation. Her paralegal got me in for a consultation that same afternoon. Patricia's office was in a professional building downtown. Nice setup, but not pretentious. Framed degrees on the wall, family photos on her desk, shelves full of law books that looked actually used. Woman was in her mid-50s, dressed professional but practical. Shook my hand with a firm grip and told me to sit down and tell her everything. Went through the whole story. The divorce 3 years ago, the custody arrangement, my consistent support payments, Brandon entering the picture, the recent behavior changes, Jenny's proposal to triple my payments. Showed her the document Jenny had given me. Patricia reviewed the proposed modification and actually laughed. Said Jenny's lawyer was either incompetent or desperate. The justification that I owed them a comfortable life because Brandon chose to quit his job was legally nonsense. Child support is based on both parents' incomes and the children's needs, not on funding a step-parent's lifestyle choices. She explained that courts look at several factors when modifying support: changes in either parent's income, changes in the children's needs, changes in custody arrangements, and any material changes in circumstances. A new spouse choosing voluntary unemployment doesn't qualify as a material change that would increase the other parent's obligation. She asked if I had any documentation about Brandon's employment situation. I told her what Nathan had mentioned about Brandon being home all the time, the email rejections I'd glimpsed, the fact that Jenny seemed stressed about money suddenly, the changes in Brandon's appearance and their household routines. Patricia said we needed more information. She filed a discovery request, which basically forced Jenny to disclose her household financial situation. If she was claiming financial hardship, she had to prove it. That meant bank statements, tax returns, employment records for both her and Brandon, household expenses, everything. The discovery process is interesting. When someone files for a support modification claiming they can't make ends meet, the court requires complete financial disclosure. Both parties have to produce documents: last 2 years of tax returns, 6 months of bank statements, pay stubs, credit card statements, loan documents, mortgage statements, vehicle information, insurance policies. Can't just claim you're broke without proving it. Patricia's paralegal prepared the discovery requests. Comprehensive list of documents we needed. Sent it certified mail to Jenny's attorney with a 30-day response deadline. Legally, they had to comply. Refusing to produce documents makes you look like you're hiding something, and judges don't appreciate that. While we waited for discovery responses, Patricia advised me to start documenting everything on my end. Keep detailed records of all interactions with Jenny and Brandon. Note any comments the kids made about their living situation. Save all text messages and emails. Track my own expenses related to the children. Create a timeline of when I started noticing changes in Brandon's employment status. I spent evenings putting together a binder. Organized chronologically, color-coded tabs. Printed emails from the divorce showing the original custody and support agreement. Screenshots of my bank statements showing I'd paid support on time every single month for 3 years. Never missed a payment. Receipts for kids' expenses I'd covered beyond the support. Birthday presents, school supplies, clothes, shoes. Records of medical expenses I'd been reimbursing Jenny for. That medical expense thing was interesting. Part of our divorce agreement was I'd pay for health insurance, and we'd split copays and other out-of-pocket costs 50-50. Jenny would pay up front, send me receipts, I'd reimburse her half. Had been doing this for 3 years. Started really looking at those receipts. Something felt off about some of them. One from 8 months ago said Nathan had a dentist appointment. Copay was $75. Sent Jenny $37.50 like always. But when I called our insurance company to check the claim, turned out the visit was fully covered. No copay at all. Jenny had pocketed the $37.50. Found another one. Lily's glasses supposedly cost $280 out of pocket. Reimbursed Jenny $140. Called the vision provider. Glasses were fully covered under our plan. 0 out-of-pocket cost. Started going through every medical reimbursement from the past 2 years. Found 8 instances where Jenny had claimed costs that didn't exist. Total came to about $2,800 she'd taken from me under false pretenses. Not a huge amount, but enough to establish a pattern. Made copies of everything. Insurance claim statements showing 0 patient responsibility. Texts from Jenny requesting reimbursement with made-up amounts. Bank records showing I'd sent the money. All documented. Jenny's response came 2 weeks later. An emergency motion to modify child support, just like she'd threatened. Filed through the courts, scheduled for a hearing in 6 weeks. The document was 15 pages of dramatic nonsense about how the children's well-being was at stake. How my refusal to cooperate showed I didn't care about their quality of life. How Brandon's presence as a full-time caregiver was valuable and deserved financial recognition. My favorite part was where her lawyer argued that Brandon's decision to be a stay-at-home dad was equivalent to me having a spouse who worked, and therefore my household income should be calculated as if my theoretical working wife contributed additional funds. The mental gymnastics were Olympic level. Patricia was furious, said this was one of the most ridiculous filings she'd seen in 20 years of practice. We filed a response that basically said prove it. Prove the kids actually needed more money. Prove Brandon's presence added value. Prove the household was genuinely struggling and not just funding a lifestyle they couldn't afford. Discovery came back 3 weeks before the hearing. And let me tell you, it was a goldmine. First, Brandon hadn't quit his job to be a stay-at-home dad. He'd been fired 6 months ago for missing sales quotas 3 quarters in a row. The company had given him multiple warnings, put him on a performance improvement plan, and finally let him go. He'd been collecting unemployment benefits while pretending everything was fine. Second, Brandon and Jenny's household finances were a disaster. The new house they'd bought, 7 months behind on payments. The BMW he drove, leased at $850 a month, 2 months overdue. Credit card debt totaling over $43,000, mostly from vacations, designer clothes, and restaurant bills. They'd been living like millionaires on a dental hygienist's salary. Third, Jenny had been taking the kids' medical expenses that I was reimbursing her for and using that money for personal stuff. I'd been sending her money for co-pays, prescriptions, Lily's glasses, all documented. She'd been pocketing it and using our health insurance without telling me, then claiming she paid out of pocket. Found receipts for a weekend spa trip that coincidentally cost exactly what I'd sent for Nathan's dental work that month. Fourth, Brandon had applied for over 60 jobs in the past 5 months. Got rejected from all of them. His resume was full of exaggerations about his sales record that didn't match his actual employment history. Multiple companies had flagged his applications as dishonest. The man couldn't get hired anywhere, so the whole stay-at-home dad thing was a cover story. Fifth, Jenny had been telling people at her work that I was a deadbeat dad who refused to pay more child support. Had screenshots of texts she'd sent to coworkers talking about taking me to court, about how I was selfish and only cared about money. Called me cheap for driving a Ford instead of something nicer. Said the kids were embarrassed about my house. Patricia organized everything into a binder. Bank statements, text messages, employment records, credit reports, medical receipts. Every piece of evidence cataloged and cross-referenced. She built a timeline showing exactly when Brandon lost his job, when the financial problems started, when Jenny began pressuring me for more money. We also looked into Brandon's social media. This guy, this absolute genius, had been posting on Instagram the entire time about his stay-at-home dad life. Pictures of him at the gym at 10 a.m. on weekdays, posts about having coffee at expensive cafes in the middle of the afternoon, photos of him golfing with buddies on Tuesday mornings, multiple check-ins at bars and restaurants during times he was supposedly caring for the children who were actually at school. My personal favorite was a post from 2 weeks ago. Picture of him on the couch playing video games, caption, "Living the dream." No job stress, no boss breathing down my neck, just quality time with the family. Stay-at-home life hits different. Yeah, it hits different when someone else is paying your bills. Patricia also found something interesting in Jenny's social media. She'd been complaining in a private Facebook group about her financial situation, about how unfair it was that her ex-husband made more money and refused to help them out. One of her friends had commented suggesting she take me to court for more support. Jenny responded that her lawyer said it was a slam dunk, that judges always sided with the custodial parent, that I'd have to pay whatever the court ordered. That comment became Exhibit F in our response filing. We also subpoenaed the kids' school records. Attendance, grades, teacher comments, everything. Wanted to show that despite Jenny's claims about how my lack of financial support was affecting the children, they were actually thriving. Nathan had perfect attendance. Honor roll last semester. Lily was reading above grade level, had won an award for her artwork. Their teachers noted they were happy, well-adjusted, engaged students. The evidence showed the kids were fine. It was Brandon and Jenny who were drowning financially due to their own poor choices. Patricia filed our countermotion a week before the hearing. Instead of defending against Jenny's request for more money, we went on offense. Requested a modification that would reduce my child support payments based on Jenny's actual household income, and the fact that Brandon should be contributing financially to the home. Even if he was legitimately staying home by choice, his previous income should be imputed for support calculations. Courts don't let parents voluntarily reduce income to increase child support obligations on the other parent. We also requested reimbursement for the medical expenses Jenny had been pocketing, about $2,800 over the past 2 years. Small amount in the grand scheme, but it established a pattern of dishonesty. And then we asked for attorney's fees. Jenny had filed a frivolous motion that wasted court time and legal resources. I'd had to hire Patricia, spend hours gathering evidence, deal with this nonsense when I should have been focused on actually parenting my kids. We wanted Jenny to pay my legal bills. The hearing was scheduled for a Thursday afternoon. I took the day off work, wore a suit, brought my binder of evidence. Patricia looked like she was ready for war. Jenny showed up with her lawyer, who looked way less confident than he probably had when he filed the original motion. Brandon came too, wearing khakis and a polo, like he was interviewing for a country club membership. Jenny looked nervous. The judge was a woman in her late 50s who'd been on the bench for 15 years. She had a reputation for not tolerating nonsense. Jenny's lawyer went first, gave this whole sob story about how hard things were, how Brandon's choice to be present for the children was admirable and deserved recognition, how my income had increased substantially and the kids should benefit. He presented their household budget showing they were barely scraping by on Jenny's income alone. Then Patricia stood up. She methodically destroyed every argument, showed Brandon's termination papers, presented the bank statements showing their spending habits, displayed the Instagram posts where Brandon was clearly not focused on childcare during school hours, highlighted the text messages where Jenny called me a deadbeat despite me paying my support on time every month for 3 years. The judge's expression went from neutral to annoyed about halfway through Patricia's presentation. When Patricia got to the medical expense reimbursements, Jenny's face went pale. She tried to interject, saying there was a misunderstanding, but the judge told her to be quiet. The judge asked Brandon directly why he thought he wasn't obligated to contribute financially to the household. Brandon stumbled through an answer about being there for the kids, about how childcare was valuable work, about how he was building a foundation for their future. The judge asked him what he'd been doing between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. on weekdays when both children were at school. Brandon didn't have a good answer. She asked Jenny why she thought I should increase my support payments to cover her new husband's unemployment. Jenny said something about the kids deserving consistency, about maintaining their lifestyle. The judge pointed out that the kids were with me 50% of the time, were doing excellent in school, and showed no signs of financial hardship in either household. The lifestyle Jenny was concerned about maintaining appeared to be her own, not the children's. Then the judge asked about the medical reimbursements. Jenny tried to explain that she'd intended to use that money for the kids eventually, that it wasn't technically fraud. The judge noted that misrepresenting medical expenses to obtain funds from the other parent was, in fact, fraud. Small scale, but fraud nonetheless. The ruling came down like a hammer. Motion to increase child support. Denied. The judge stated that Brandon's voluntary unemployment was not a valid reason to increase support obligations, and that Jenny's household financial mismanagement did not constitute an emergency requiring immediate modification. Request to reduce my support payments. Partially granted. The judge imputed Brandon's previous income into the household calculation, which actually reduced my monthly obligation by $200. I was now paying $1,000 a month instead of $1,200. Reimbursement for medical expenses? Granted in full. Jenny had to pay me back $2,800, plus interest. Attorney's fees? Granted. Jenny was responsible for paying my legal costs, which totaled about $8,500. The judge also ordered that all future medical expenses be submitted with documentation before reimbursement, and that any attempt to inflate or misrepresent costs would result in sanctions. Jenny started crying. Brandon looked like he'd been hit by a truck. Their lawyer was already packing his briefcase, probably calculating how fast he could get out of there. But the judge wasn't done. She asked Jenny directly if she had anything to say about the text messages, where she'd been disparaging me to others while I fulfilled my obligations. Jenny mumbled something about being frustrated. The judge said that parental alienation was a serious concern, that teaching children to view their other parent negatively, or making false statements about that parent to others, could result in custody modifications. She noted that my children were thriving in my care, that I'd maintained stable housing and employment, that I'd never been late with support payments. She said that if she saw another frivolous motion like this one, she'd consider modifying custody arrangements to give me primary placement. Jenny's lawyer tried to object, but the judge shut him down, said he should have advised his client better before filing such a baseless claim, suggested he review the state bar guidelines on frivolous litigation. Court adjourned. In the hallway outside, Brandon tried to approach me, said he wanted to explain, that it wasn't personal, that they'd just been desperate. I told him he had 2 minutes. He went into this whole thing about how losing his job had been devastating, how he'd been trying so hard to find work, how being at home with the kids had given him purpose. He actually seemed like he believed it. I asked him why he thought it was my responsibility to pay his bills. He didn't have an answer. I told him I'd been working my rear end off for 9 years at the same company, that I'd made sacrifices to maintain stability for my kids, that I'd paid my support on time, kept the kids insured, provided everything they needed, and he thought he could swoop in, make bad financial decisions with my ex-wife, then shake me down for more money to cover his unemployment. He said he didn't think of it that way. I told him I didn't care how he thought of it. The judge just told him to get a job, so maybe he should go do that instead of wasting my time with excuses. Brandon walked away. Jenny came out a few minutes later, red-eyed and angry, accused me of humiliating her in court, of making her look bad in front of the judge. Said I could have just agreed to help them out instead of dragging everyone through this mess. I reminded her that she filed the motion. She dragged us into court. I just defended myself. She said the kids would remember this, that they'd know I chose money over their well-being. I told her the kids were doing great. Honor roll, perfect attendance, happy and healthy. The only well-being at risk was hers, because she'd married someone who couldn't hold a job and then tried to make it my problem. Patricia pulled me away before I could say anything else. We left the courthouse and got lunch. She said that was one of the most satisfying hearings she'd done in months. Said judges hate manipulation attempts like that, especially when one parent is clearly trying to weaponize the system. I paid her bill the next week, worth every penny. The $2,800 reimbursement showed up in my account 3 weeks later. Jenny paid it in 2 installments because apparently coming up with that much cash at once was difficult. First payment was $1,500. Second was $1,300 about 10 days later. The attorney's fees took longer. Patricia sent Jenny's lawyer the invoice, $8,500 total. They tried to negotiate it down, claimed it was excessive. Patricia sent them an itemized breakdown of every hour worked, every document filed, every phone call made. They shut up after that. Jenny's making payments, $500 monthly until it's settled. 17 months of reminders that filing frivolous lawsuits has consequences. My reduced child support kicked in immediately. The extra $200 a month goes straight into college funds I set up for Nathan and Lily. They don't know about it yet, but by the time they're 18, each kid will have a decent chunk for school. 2 weeks after the hearing, Jenny texted asking if I'd be willing to take the kids an extra night each week. Said her work schedule changed and she needed help. I said sure, as long as we adjust the support calculation accordingly. She never brought it up again. Brandon got a job about 3 weeks after court. Nathan mentioned it during dinner one night. Brandon was working at a gym now, something at the front desk. Lily said he seemed grumpy about it. Didn't want to talk about work when they asked. I looked it up later. Big chain gym, decent facility. Front desk positions there pay about $14 an hour. Brandon went from probably $70,000 in pharmaceutical sales to $30,000 checking people in at a gym. That's what happens when you get fired for performance issues and spend 6 months unemployed instead of taking whatever work you can find. Jenny stopped making comments about my house or truck. Custody exchanges became silent transactions. She pulls up, I walk the kids out, they get in her car, she drives away. No small talk, no eye contact, no passive-aggressive digs. Fine by me. Her social media stayed quiet for about 6 weeks. Then she started posting again. But different now. No more vacation photos or date night pictures. Mostly just kid stuff. Generic inspirational quotes. Occasional photos of her garden. The whole carefully curated lifestyle image disappeared. Brandon's Instagram got interesting, though. Guy started posting gym selfies constantly, trying to rebrand himself as a fitness enthusiast. Every other day there's a new post about motivation, grinding, building yourself back up. Comments are turned off on all of them. About 2 months after the hearing, I got a call from Jenny's lawyer. He wanted to discuss possibly modifying the payment plan for the attorney's fees. Said Jenny was struggling to keep up with all her obligations. Wondered if I'd accept $300 monthly instead of $500. I told him to talk to Patricia. Patricia called me an hour later, laughing. Said she told Jenny's lawyer absolutely not. The payment plan was already generous, and if Jenny missed a payment, they'd pursue collection. He didn't push back. 3 months post-hearing, Nathan's basketball season started. I'm coaching his team, which is hilarious because I'm terrible at basketball, but the kids think it's funny. We practice twice a week, games on Saturdays. Brandon showed up to the first game, sat in the bleachers by himself, watched quietly, left without saying anything to anyone. Hasn't missed a game since, but doesn't try to interact. Just watches Nathan play and leaves. Jenny comes to about half the games. When she does, she sits on the opposite side of the court from Brandon. They're clearly not doing well, but that's not my problem. Last month, I got my annual review at work. Got another raise, 4% this time. Boss said they're considering me for a director position that might open up next year. Would mean more responsibility, but also more money, better title, probably a small relocation bonus, even though it'd be same facility. Nathan asked me last week why Brandon and his mom seemed sad lately. Kid's perceptive. I told him sometimes adults make choices that don't work out how they expected, and they have to figure out how to fix it. Said it wasn't his problem to worry about, that his job was to be a kid and do well in school and have fun. He seemed satisfied with that. Lily's art teacher called me yesterday to say she's doing exceptionally well, wants to submit some of her pieces to a district competition. Asked if I'd be okay with that. Of course I said yes. Kid's talented, might as well let her show it off. The kids are thriving. That's what matters. Jenny and Brandon are dealing with reality now. His front desk job barely covers his car payment. Her dental hygienist income supports the house payment and basic expenses. The designer lifestyle they were trying to maintain fell apart. They're probably going to have to sell the house, downsize to something affordable. The BMW lease is up in 4 months. Doubt they'll renew it. Meanwhile, I'm coaching basketball, working toward a promotion, watching my kids succeed. The $200 monthly savings is adding up. College funds are growing. My credit score is excellent. House payment is manageable. Truck runs perfectly. Last week, Brandon sent me a text. First direct contact since the courthouse. Asked if I had any advice for getting back into professional sales. Said his current job wasn't working out. Wondered if I knew anyone hiring. I left it on read. This morning, Jenny called. Actual phone call, not text. Said she wanted to apologize for how things went down, that she'd been stressed and made poor decisions, that she hoped we could co-parent more cooperatively going forward. I told her we've been co-parenting fine. Custody schedule works, kids are happy, everything's stable. If she wants to change something, put it in writing and send it to Patricia. She said that seemed harsh. I reminded her she took me to court trying to triple my child support for no legitimate reason, accused me of not caring about my kids, made me spend months and thousands of dollars defending myself. If she wants cooperation, she can start by following the court order and making her attorney fee payments on time. She hung up. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.